Good morning. We are in May already. Weekly price changes. Actually, rains have done a remarkable job holding their strength. While we have relatively an early planting year and winter wheat conditions are improving pretty dramatically right now, but prices actually of grains were had a decent performance. July corn only down 16 cents. July soybeans down 1. July Chicago wheat down 2 for the week. Minneapolis wheat actually gained 5 cents on a year that we have very early planting progress and winter wheat conditions continue to improve significantly week by week. July crude oil down 473, back down to the yearly lows basically. Wow, we're going to save a lot of money on energy if crude oil prices stay down here. June gold down $55. Uh, Actually, inflation seems to be easing in the US tremendously the past 4 or 5 months. The Dow stock market up 1,100 points after big gains last week, gained 2,000 points the last 2 weeks, and the dollar up 0.586, some small gains there. This is very interesting because we have pretty early planning progress, and actually, the forecast the next 2 weeks is for relatively warm, dry conditions, especially in the northern half of the United States, where most of the corn and soybeans are planted. As of progress on Monday, April 28th, corn was 24% planted, 2% above the average, a little bit behind last year. Soybeans 18% planted, 6% above average, and 1% above last year. Hard red spring wheat 30% planted, 9% above average, and 1% behind last year. Barley 37, 8% above average, and a little ahead of last year. And actually, with the dry forecast, these percentages are going to move up even more versus average over the next 2 weeks. Sorghum, cotton, and especially sugar beets also ahead of average. So we have an early planting year. You can see actually corn dropped in price a little bit this week, but actually this is a very good performance. The forecast the next 2 weeks has shifted from wet forecast to dry for most of the planting area in the United States, a lot of the Corn Belt, and yet prices are holding relatively steady. Although, we've shown some weakness, there's some things going on more important than weather in May. There's things going on more important than that. And a lot of that development, of course, we have the supposed trade tariffs, which is going to devastate grain prices. Actually, it looks to me like grain prices are going up because of the tariffs that were imposed. What do they call it? Liberation Day. Essentially, we are liberating grain prices. Let me put it another way. The so-called experts told us grain prices would go down because of these tariffs, that it was going to devastate us, blah, blah, blah. What is actually happening, it looks like the United States has been abused in trade for years and years, especially in grains. We couldn't sell into China. We weren't able to sell and do business in China, but China's selling 3 to 4 times more product to us than we're buying from us. Actually, they're going to have to abide by that trade agreement Trump negotiated in the first term. And that's what's being negotiated. That's what's being talked about. And prices are going up. Look at soybeans. Prices are going actually up during the trade situation, because when we finish that negotiation with China, and they have to negotiate because they sell 3 to 4 times more product to us. I've been saying this since the beginning of this. This is going to be good for agriculture, and actually it's already starting to happen. I didn't expect that. No expert expected it, and certainly the ivory tower university professors didn't expect that. Actually, you could say Harvard, Stanford, and Yale are some of the stupidest people on the planet right now, and you'd probably be not far from the truth. So we've got some very interesting things happening. This is the winter wheat crop conditions, 49%, up 4% last Monday. They're going to go up again because we've had some beneficial rain again. And our yield model as of last week was 52.74, 1.1 bushels above trend and above last year's yield. Actually, it's going to improve more because winter wheat country is forecast to be warm and wet the next 2 weeks. And That is going to improve winter wheat conditions again. Topsoil moisture also improved 6% from last week, and subsoil 4%. Although when we go through this dry period, we're going to probably be done planting by within the next 2 weeks. By the third week of May, most of the corn, soybeans, and now spring planted crops are going to be planted based on this weather forecast. So it is going to be interesting. We will start depleting that soil moisture in those areas. Here's the wheat price. Wheat price is actually relatively stable here. And most surprising, knocked the university professors off their chairs. Grain prices have held steady and actually gone up since the supposed trade wars that were going to be so devastating have been put in place. Spring wheat prices relatively stable, and actually a little spike here. We gained in spring wheat last week, despite huge improvement in winter wheat, huge improvement in the planting weather forecast. It's going to be dry in the Corn Belt. It's going to be wet in winter wheat country. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better forecast to improve the number of bushels we produce each year, and yet prices holding steady. In the case of spring wheat, actually went higher. Shocking, shocking. And we supposedly have a trade war, and actually it looks like it's doing nothing but help prices. I saw an interview, CBS did an interview with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, a very experienced diplomat, and the CBS people, the actual interview transcript showed what a bunch of idiots CBS is, and all of these woke idiots who are interviewing. Lavrov made the guy look like a complete moron. I mean, they are the very much so a part of the propaganda outlet of, you might as well, they could be employed by the CIA. And nowhere is that more prevalent than the Washington Post, which is basically owned by the CIA. New York Times. The American mainstream press is a catastrophe. Truth Social, Trump actual tweets is a smart idea to read, and you need to get alternative sources than the woke Wall Street Journal to find your information, because it's complete crap, basically. So interestingly, you get to the crude oil market. Crude oil is collapsing mainly because Russia is going to be brought back into the world in trade, and crude oil energy prices are collapsing because of it. Here's another example. Europe essentially has canceled democracy in 3 countries now. In France, they've canceled it because they banned Marine Le Pen, the leading presidential contender, from running for office this year for 5 years because of their lawfare. Does that sound familiar? Is there another country that we heard about that? Brazil has done it. They banned Bolsonaro from running for office, and so they canceled democracy in Brazil. But do we see it in France? In France, they did it with Le Pen. Germany is now considering, they're investigating the leading political party, AfD, and they want to ban them from running for office too. And the third place, the United Kingdom, basically just elected had a new election, and the 2 major political parties have lost. The Liberals they're becoming out, and what do? They've been touting democracy for years, and now they're banning democracy in many of those countries. Germany, France, Romania, they banned the leading candidate from running. Gee, didn't they try to do that too in the United States too? Gee, didn't they try to do that? There is a lot of crap information out there, and you're going to hear more of it. But wow, these developments where these trade wars are actually helping grain prices, despite terrible, very negative weather developments. Rapid planting progress in the spring, winter wheat conditions improving, and yet prices in spring wheat improve, and the other grains are steady this week. Shocking development. Gold prices, which have been at an all-time high. Of course, the United States is nearing bankruptcy, but gold has set back the last couple of weeks. We got to $3,200 here, where I thought it should be bought, and you could have bought gold yesterday at $3,200. Many people, me included, I think gold is going to go up to $4,200. I have heard people talking about gold at $15,000 if the United States has to go to a gold standard, because essentially we're going to be defaulting on our loans relatively quickly unless we make corrections, and basically nobody can make corrections quick enough to balance out that trade. So it is a very, very interesting developments. Here we've got the Dow. The Dow has recovered another 2,000 points in the last 2 weeks, gaining again this week. It looks like the Dow is going to come back up here and test those highs. And quite frankly, based on many of these trade disputes being resolved in favor of the United States, and a lot of things, jobs report came out, and they're saying, oh, the U.S. economy is strong despite, if you read the Wall Street Journal, despite Trump's terrible policies on tariffs. Wall Street Journal is about the stupidest publication in the world. I once had an investment in some real estate assets, and the Wall Street Journal had a front page article like, oh, this is going to be the most terrible investment in the world. The price of this asset doubled in 5 or 6 years. So I have personal experience of how horrible the Wall Street Journal is in their news. So the last one I'm showing here is the US dollar. You can see we recovered a little bit, basically back to the year's lows before. You could see this US dollar has been in big trouble, but actually I think it gained on the idea that Trump would win election and he would restore financial responsibility in the United States. And clearly he can't do it. And because they won't let him, the courts won't let him. The Democrats want to get rid of the world's most productive man, Musk, who's trying to balance our budget and save money on all the stupid waste that the United States has been doing for years. And gosh dang it, the world, the half the country hates that. They can't stand that the guy's working for free. Wow. And it's ironic. Musk's company, Tesla, probably the most innovative company maybe ever in the world. They are saying, Musk, you have to come back and work for us because we need you. The company you're absolutely critical to our success. And what does the American public say? We want to get rid of you, Musk, because we don't want you. And he's working for free for the American people, trying to balance the economy and balance our financial situation. What an irony. There's a lot of stupid people in the world, and I guess that will never end. It is a very interesting world we live in, but obviously we've got some shocking developments. It looks like we have early planting. We have maybe ideal weather, at least to this point. Winter wheat conditions are improving significantly, and yet grain prices do not go down. And supposedly we have a trade war that's going to sabotage grain prices forever, and yet grain prices are holding their own. Actually, here's another interesting thing. Gold is really the measure of value that takes currencies out of it. The United States has lost 12% on the dollar in the last 4 months. Actually, gold has soared in that time frame. In terms of the amount of bushels of grain you can buy with 1 ounce of gold, we are at an all-time high. In other words, grain prices valued with gold are at all-time historic lows right now. I mean, way lower than normal. So essentially, grain is almost free in historical comparisons based on the price of gold. So, Ben, you think about it in terms like that, and maybe we get U.S. trade back in line. We have a tremendous bullish potential in grains, but we got to get the right fundamentals. And absolutely, it's interesting. We've got very bearish developments on the weather side, which generally dominates grain trade prices at this time. And yet prices are not going down. Very interesting and maybe telling. Hope you have a great weekend. A lot to contemplate this weekend. Hope you have a great weekend and good marketing.